Hello everyone, and welcome. This is your friend, Alakazam ASMR, back once again with more content for every single one of you. And I hope you had a very Merry Christmas, some happy holidays, and a happy New Year. Thank you so much. Whether you're a new subscriber, someone who's just clicked in this video, or an old-time friend, thank you so much for staying with me on this little journey of ours and making it a great experience. Thank you. Now moving along, the topic of this video today is familiar ground. We're getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. This time, to get in the spirit of things with the last video, which was structure decks, we're going to get into another one. And what greater way to get into the spirit of structure decks than the Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure deck, Spirit Charmers. This is a structure deck based around a specific theme of monster. In this case, the archetype known as the Charmers. Cute little magicians that represent one of each of the four elements. So, Spirit Charmers, we have earth, wind, water, and fire. Very nice little box here. Let's read the back. Let's see. One of four ultra-rare variant art cards. You can see all four of them. The Spirit Charmers. Master the elements alongside the Charmers and their familiars with structure deck, Spirit Charmers. Basic Charmers can steal away monsters that match their attribute, and if you control even one Charmer, you can fill the field with familiars. Add to the legacy with variant artwork of their familiar possessed versions. This structure deck includes 5 ultra rares, 4 of them fixed, and 1 of 4 variant art cards, 2 super rares, 35 commons, 1 of 5 super rare token cards, and 1 double-sided deluxe game mat / dueling guide with tips to execute the perfect strategy. A plug for Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron, if you want to try that out. A useful little app for playing the game. And, as with all structure decks, we can look on the inside by looking at the back, and it tells us exactly what we're in for. Monster cards. We have Aussa, the Earth Charmer. Aussa, the Earth Charmer. Eria, the Water Charmer. Hiita, the Fire Charmer. Wynn, the Wind Charmer. Awakening of the Possessed, Nefarious Archfiend. Awakening of the Possessed, Greater Inari Fire. Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness. Very nefarious name, so that is. Gigabyte, Inari Fire, Ranryu, Fairy Tale, Sleeper, Fairy Tale, Rella, Fairy Tale, Luna, Witchcrafter Golem, Aruru, Dark Doriado. Ooh, that's nice. Doriado's a very beautiful card. We'll get into her later. Witch of the Black Forest, another card I like. Effect Veiler, Denko Sekka, Familiar Possessed Aussa, Familiar Possessed Eria, Familiar Possessed Hiita, Familiar Possessed Wynn. And for our spell cards we have Grand Spiritual Art Ichirin, Awakening of the Possessed, Raigeki, a classic, Secret Village of the Spellcasters, Spell Book of Knowledge, Terraforming, Book of Eclipse, Twin Twisters, Dark Ruler No More, and the namesake, Spirit Charmers. And for our trap cards we have Possessed Partnerships, Unpossessed, Spiritual Earth Art, Kurogane, Spiritual Water Art, Aoi, Spiritual Fire Art, Kurenai, Spiritual Wind Art, Miyabi, Metaverse, Dimensional Barrier, Solemn Warning, and 1 token card. And that's pretty much what we're going to get inside this little structure deck. The preview before we open this thing. So, a little bit of trivia before we bust this thing open. Yes, this card is based on 4 monsters known as the Spirit Charmers. We have Aussa for Earth, Wynn for Wind, Eria for Water, and Hiita for Fire. But there's actually 2 more Charmer monsters that aren't as popular because they haven't had as much support compared to these 4 girls. You have Lina, who's the Spirit Charmer of Light, and Dark, who's the Spirit Charmer for, you guessed it, Dark. It'll be really nice because this structure deck is a nudge in the right direction of turning this from an obscure archetype to gradually making it more and more viable for competitive play. Now, this isn't all the way there, but it's a step in the right direction. I'd like to see them make more variations of Lina and Dark, so that way we have the 4 elements and light and darkness. So, let's get into Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure Deck, Spirit Charmers, and please enjoy, my friends. Okay, so inside it's pretty basic from here. You have your game mat, you have promotional card, and what else we got in here? Ah yes, very safely tucked away, we have the deck itself. Give me a moment here. Alright, so we have our structure deck here, our game mat, and a promotional card. So, here's how it goes. First of all, I'm going to take the game mat and open. Let's make some space for it here. So, every structure deck comes with one of these, which is very useful. You fold this out, and on one side, it comes with pretty useful information for beginners, such as strategies, manipulate monster attributes for a huge boost with Awakening of the Possessed, little guides on what you can do with this deck, and lots of cool stuff here. Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG Art Gallery, a group picture of the Charmers and nearly drawn rough sketches revealed. Oh, this is really cool actually. They don't normally do this. They've actually got concept art on the back here. Afternoon break with a few friends. They will continue their daily training to achieve mastery of their spiritual art later. So it's all those girls resting up. That's a nice little bit of concept art. Each girl shows off their unique abilities in their own way, deepening the bond with our familiar. Together, they will achieve greatness. That's really cool. Normally it just includes strategies and, advertisements, but this one's actually pretty good. It gives you concept art. That's a pleasant surprise. That was a very unexpected bonus. When getting this game mat open, we can see a variety of different arts of the Spirit Charmers, rough sketches which are incredibly well drawn. Get to see card artworks in full color here. More sketches down here. Combined picture of them all together here. A and another sketch. That's very generous of them. I like that. I'd like them to include more of that in the structure decks. I think that could be really cool. But of course, we have the other side to reveal of this playmat. So this little part will be a bit tricky to get all in the one picture. But you flip over the other side and you have the game mat. Now, let me just place this down. Now, I need something to weigh down each end. I've got a little candle here I'll use to weigh down each side. One on this side, and one on this side. Just need to straighten that out. So, in this game mat, I used a candle to weigh that down. You can see the very cutesy art. All of the spirit charmers, Hiita, Wynn, Eria, and Aussa, and their familiars, resting in the grass. A very cute little image. And of course, Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure deck. Spirit charmers. It's a bit of an awkward angle to film at, as it's quite wide, this playmat. But of course, that's a good thing, because it means it's perfect for playing. Because you have your monster card zones here, and your spell card zones here. So, it's ideal. So, we have our lovely gaming mat all set up and ready to go to display the cards, of course, of this structure deck. But with the structure deck itself here, we actually have 2 promotional cards. Now, the first card's going to be 1 in 4 alternate artworks of the familiar possessed versions of the Spirit Charmers. So, let's see which one we get out of our bonus cards. So, our first bonus card is the Familiar Possessed Aussa, level 4 Earth type. So we got the Earth Charmer Aussa. This is the alternate artwork of an already existing card. And we could have gone 1 out of 4. So this is the one we have. Very nice. There's Aussa there. Brown hair. Glasses. And an Archfiend rod. Very nice. Spellcaster with an effect. You can special summon this card from your hand or deck by sending 1 face-up Aussa the Earth Charmer and 1 face-up Earth monster you control to the graveyard. If this special summoned by its own effect monster attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage, an attack of 1850, and a defense of 1500. So Familiar Possessed really needs to be summoned by Aussa and a face-up Earth monster you control. And then you get the ability to inflict piercing damage, which is pretty good. But the main attraction of this card is the artwork. There she is, Aussa. And our second promotional card is going to be a token. So, our token is as follows. This card can be used as any token, attack and defense of 0. We have Wynn and Aussa cuddling up together. How cute is that artwork? Very adorable. It's quite nice to see them battle ready and also in chibi form. Very adorable. been our bonus cards. So now we're going to get in finally to the structure deck itself of Yu-Gi-Oh! Spirit Charmers. Let us begin, my friends. So, we have our two bonus cards. We have our token, with Wynn and Aussa. Very cute. And we have our alternate artwork, Familiar Possessed, Aussa. Let's get a light source on the artwork there. Very cute for glasses on. So, that's our two special promo cards, Familiar Possessed, Aussa, and our token. Next, we get into the main reason we buy a structure deck, the structure deck itself. So please enjoy, my friends. Okay. No surprises what we're going to get in here from this point. These will be the cards as described on the Eria portion of this video. Those two are randomized artwork-wise, but this deck is going to be exactly what is advertised on the back, which is great for newcomers. Let's get this opened up. Okay, with my magic powers we got it opened. And of course, nowadays, you don't just have the structure deck, but thanks to the advancement of modern technology, we have Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure deck, Spirit Charmers. A QR code. Scan here to learn the basics. So your beginner's guide comes in the form of a QR code, which is rather neat. You also will receive an advertisement for Yu-Gi-Oh! Phantom Rage with a QR code if you want to check that out. There you go. So, advertisement. We have another advertisement for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, which is Yu-Gi-Oh! On the mobile. You can get it on the App Store, Google Play, Steam, whichever thing you prefer. And another bit of artwork for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, with artwork from Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimensions, which is the most recent movie that came out. And our final advertisement, which is, it's time to duel. Challenge all duelists from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Universe. Build your deck from over 10,000 cards. Take on your friends of the world. Available now. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist, Link Evolution. A game which I fully intend on getting around to filming for you all someday. But it also makes for a neat little card, because we get to see the new Yu-Gi-Oh! Protagonist on the right, as well as Yami Yugi, our original and most famous protagonist. I'll have some more Yu-Gi-Oh! Surprises down the road for you in the future. But until then, we got something as straightforward as a structure deck to open. So let us finally begin Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading Card Game. Structure deck, Spirit Charmers. Okay. Put the token to the side. Okay, structure deck. Let's open it up, and here we go. So, leave this off screen. Our first card is Awakening of the Possessed, Nefarious Archfiend, a level 5 Earth-type monster. Here's Aussa and Nefarious Archfiend in a more battle-like artwork. Beast with an effect. You can special summon this card from your hand or deck by sending one face-up Spellcaster monster and one face-up level 4 or lower Earth monster you control to the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Awakening of the Possessed, Nefarious Archfiend, once per turn. When this card is special summoned by its effect, you can special summon one level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard, but negate its effects. Or, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one Spiritual Earth art card or one Possessed Spell Trap card from your deck to your hand, an attack of 2000 and a defense of 200. And this is Awakening of the Possessed, Nefarious Archfiend. This is synergy with the other Spirit Charmer cards. It can be used as a means, if it's destroyed, to receive spell cards from your deck to your hand, or special summon other cards of certain elements and archetypes, like Spirit Charmers, or in this card's case, Earth types. And this is the first of the four elemental Spirit Charmers, excluding Liner and Dark. So, we have our first element, Earth. So our second card's going to be our second elemental Spirit Charmer, Awakening of the Possessed, Greater Inari Fire, a level 5 fire type. Well, a fire attribute to be precise. Greater Inari Fire. Really love the battlefield effect on this artwork. Pyro with an effect. You can special summon this card from your hand or deck by sending one face-up Spellcaster monster and one face-up level 4 or lower fire monster you control to the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Awakening of the Possessed Greater Inari Fire once per turn. So pretty much the same as the previous card, but with the fire element. Two effects. When this card is special summoned by its effect, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the original attack of one monster they control, your choice. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one Spiritual Fire art card or one Possessed Spell Trap from your deck to the hand. So this functions very similar to Nefarious Archfiend over here. Difference being, this specializes in fire types, and its effect allows you to damage your opponent equal to the original attack of one of their monsters. So while each charmer works with a certain element, they still have something unique to themselves. It's not like they're all carbon copies, and then that's it. They all specialize in an element, and they get a unique effect. And that is card number 2, Awakening of the Possessed, Greater Inari Fire. Shine some light on this beautiful card. Okay, so that was card number 2. So, our next card is going to be a spell card known as Grand Spiritual Art Ichirin. Now look at how beautiful this artwork is. You have the 4 Spirit Charmers together. simply quite a beautiful piece of artwork. Look at the light reflecting off of this. Grand Spiritual Art Ichirin. Spell card with an effect. Negate your opponent's first monster effect that resolves each turn while you control a spellcaster monster with 1500 defense. During your main phase, you can reveal one spellcaster monster from your hand, and if you do, add one monster with with the same attribute, but with 1500 attack and 200 defense from your deck to your hand. And if you do that, shuffle the revealed card into your deck. You can only use this effect of Grand Spiritual Art Ichirin once per turn. This is one of these newer cards that is specially made for the Spirit Charmer archetype. It negates your opponent's first monster effect each turn when you control a spellcaster. So this can be very useful, as the original Spirit Charmers are spellcasters, meaning you get to say no to your opponent's first effect, which is very useful. And you can add Spirit Charmers to your hand with all sorts of plays involving cards like this. And this is Grand Spiritual Art Ichirin. So, our next spell is going to be the namesake of the deck. We have the spell card simply known as Spirit Charmers. We have a beautifully drawn artwork of all 4 Spirit Charmers together. Earth, fire, water, wind, combining their powers together. Beautiful piece of artwork. Spell card with an effect. Discard 1 card. Take 2 cards from your deck with different names from each other that are Charmer monsters, familiar possessed monsters, and or possessed spells and traps. Add one of them to your hand and set the other. You can only activate 1 Spirit Charmers per turn. This is a very straightforward searcher card. You discard 1 card, you get to add a Spirit Charmer or familiar possessed. Pretty much add a Spirit Charmer to your hand and another one you can set on the field. Incredibly useful. And cards like these really help out their specific archetypes, and Spirit Charmers is the archetype of choice for today. And I like seeing older cards get support like this, because you get to see cards you've already seen with new artworks. So you get these cute little spellcaster girls, but you get to see them with a bit more expression, different poses and artworks. And I think it's really cool how you get to breathe life into older monsters like this and make them more useful than they were before. Very beautiful artwork, very dynamic the way they combine their powers together. And that is the namesake of this structure deck, Spirit Charmers. And the name of this video, after all. And that was card number 4. Now, we get into the next card, another spell, which is quite simply a card that lives in infamy, and truth be told is still very useful to this day. A spell card known as Raigeki. Now, this spell card is as simple can be. This is one of the oldest cards ever made. You can tell by the simplicity of its effect. Raigeki, spell card. Its effect, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. That's it. That's it. No drawbacks, no nothing. Simply put, play Raigeki. Boom. Destroy all opponent's monsters they control. That's it. This, back in the original days of Yu-Gi-Oh, was a card you hated to see. This, along with a card called Black... No, it wasn't called that. It was called Dark Hole. Raigeki and Dark Hole were two cards that were simple spell cards that destroyed monsters, but the sheer simplicity of their effects means that they're still powerful today. Raigeki may not be as powerful as it once was, but that's just because the game has advanced so much. You can still get really good use out of this card. And Raigeki's its strength lies in simplicity. It's a simple thunderbolt that destroys all your opponent's monsters. That's it. You gotta love the classic cards. And I'm pleased to say that I've got one in my collection. This shiny holographic art. You can see the lightning coursing through. And that was card 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, card number 6 is going to be a trap card called Possessed Partnerships. We get another beautiful artwork. This is the standout of the video so far, is getting to admire these beautiful artworks of the Spirit Charmers. And not just the Spirit Charmers. It's very easy to just get into anime mode and draw cute girls, but show off the cool fighting abilities they have. Greater Inari Fire, Water, we have Wind, and Earth. So, it's not all about being cutesy. They can also get into battle, all 4 Spirit Charmers. And you gotta admire that artwork. Water, Fire, Earth, Wind. The trap card, Possessed Partnerships, activates as follows. Special summon 1 Spellcaster monster with 1500 defense from your hand or graveyard, an attack position or face down defense position. Then, if you control monsters with 2 or more different attributes, you can destroy 1 face-up card on the field. You can banish this card from your graveyard. Then, target 1 possessed continuous spell or trap in your graveyard. Place it face-up in your field. You can only use 1 Possessed Partnerships effect per turn, and only once that turn. So, this is a way of getting a Spellcaster monster, specifically an Earth Charmer, onto the field, and also getting your Spirit Charmer support out on the field as well. A very useful utility card, and that is Possessed Partnerships. That was card number 6. Card number 7 is going to be, we have a vanilla and original Aussa, the Earth Charmer. This is the original card that rolled out way before this became a proper archetype. This is Aussa, the Earth Charmer, the original Spirit Charmer of Earth. Aussa, the Earth Charmer is a level 3 Earth-type monster. See her there? Earth Staff, cute glasses. She's a brunette. Spellcaster with a flip effect. When flipped, target 1 Earth monster your opponent controls. Take control of that target while this card is face up in the field. An attack of 500 and a defense of 1500. So, the original Earth Charmer isn't strong in battle, really, but its effect lies in being placed face down and taking control of an Earth monster. So the Spirit Charmers really focus on controlling the opposing element. Aussa's not going to win many fights, but if it's against an Earth monster, she's not going to fight them. She's going to charm them onto her side, and then take on the opponent with their own monster. If you can pull off a play like that, it can actually be very powerful. And that is card number 7, Aussa, the Earth Charmer. I'll actually put it on top of Awakening of the Possessed for later reference. So the next card's going to be the next Spirit Charmer. We have Another one of the original Spirit Charmers, Eria, the Water Charmer, a level 3 water type monster. Very pretty, with a water staff, blue hair, cutesy expression, her familiar. Spellcaster flip with an effect. Target one water monster your opponent controls. Take control of that target while this card is face up on the field. An attack of 500 and a defense of 1500. Pretty much the same as Aussa, not much attack, acceptable defense, but its strength lies in being laid face down, and if the opponent has a water monster, flipping this face up gives you complete control of that enemy's monster, which is very cool, to say the least. And that is Eria, the Water Charmer. So the next card is going to be the third of the original Wynn Charmers, Spirit Charmers, apology, is Hiita, the Fire Charmer, a level 3 fire attribute monster. She has an Inari, a fox familiar, blazing red hair, and a fiery expression on her face, along with a blazing staff. She looks like the most intense of the 4 Spirit Charmers. Still cute though. Spellcaster flip with an effect. Target one fire monster your opponent controls, and take control of that target while this card is face up on the field. Attack of 500 and defense of 1500. So, one major strength that people don't really accentuate about the Spirit Charmers is, yeah, they're not very powerful attack and defense wise, but when they do take control of an opponent's monster, it does require you to take a certain elemental monster away, but you get to keep control of that monster as long as this is on the field. A lot of cards where you can hijack an opponent's monster always has a catch. This one's catch is that Fire Charmer must stay in the field to keep control of the fire monster. But with all of these new spells and traps to support the archetype, it becomes a bit easier to keep cards like this, which are a little outdated, better protected, but still played, so you can have some fun. I don't believe in discarding old cards because they're still fun to be had. I don't like just making superior versions of cards and then you forget the original. I like having a reason to use the original cards. And that's why I like Hiita the Fire Charmer. Cool effect, pretty artwork, and it synergizes well with the rest of our friends. So, our next card's going to be the fourth and final Spirit Charmer. The fourth element, we have Wynn, the Wynn Charmer, a level 3 Wynn type monster. She has the cute petite dragon as her familiar, a cool wind crystal staff, green hair, and a cute expression on her face. Spellcaster flip with an effect. Target one wind monster your opponent controls. Take control of that target while this card is face up on the field. An attack of 500 and a defense of 1500. So stats wise, all the Wind Charmers, the originals, have the same attack and defense and pretty much the same effect, only rotating between wind, fire, earth, and water. So, you have Wynn, Eria, Hiita, and Aussa to make the 4 Spirit Charmers. And I'm enjoying getting to see all of the artwork together in this video, my friends. So, now that we got the 4 original Spirit Charmers out of the way, we get into different cards. And we'll start off with their familiars. Starting with Aussa, the Earth Charmer, we have the Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness. A very nefarious name. A level 4 F-type monster. Very cool little fiend beast. Beast with an effect. You can only control one Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness. If you control a Spellcaster monster, you can special summon this card from your hand once per turn during your opponent's end phase. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one face-up monster you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon this card. So this card plays the role of being the familiar of the Spirit Charmers very well. It's pretty much designed to be summoned. If you control a Spellcaster monster, you can special summon it from your hand, which is useful. And if this card's in your graveyard, you can destroy one of your own cards to bring this out. So you can find ways to get Nefarious Archfiend out in the field if you really need him there in a pinch. The only problem is he's not going to demolish anything with great attack points, but if you need to summon a card in a pinch, you have the option. So, that was Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness. Our next card's going to be the Familiar of Water, called Gigabyte, level 4 water type monster. Gigabyte, reptile with an effect. You can only control one Gigabyte. If you control a Spellcaster monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. When this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one monster with 1500 attack and 200 defense from your deck, except Gigabyte. So along the same lines as Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness, the Familiar is designed to get other monsters out and summoned. And we get a cool reptile to play around with as well. And that is the Familiar of the Water element. I'll put him besides Eria in the corner down here. So, we have water down here, wind down here, earth up here, fire up here, and our spells and traps. So, speaking of fire, we have the Fire Familiar and our next card, simply called Inari Fire, a level 4 fire type monster, a beautiful fox creature. Pyro with an effect. You can only control one Inari Fire, and if you control a Spellcaster monster, you can special summon this card from your hand once per turn during your next standby phase after this face-up card in the field was destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard. Special summon it from your graveyard. So, this card has an attack of 1500 and a defense of 200. Each one of these familiars has a different method of being resurrected from the graveyard. Inari Fire's effect is when it's destroyed by a card effect, next turn you can bring it back from the graveyard, special summoning it to be precise, which can be useful if you know what you're doing. And it can synergize pretty well with the rest of this deck. And that is Inari Fire, the Familiar of Hiita, the Fire Charmer. So, our next Familiar and last is Ranryu, a level 4 wind type monster. Look at this cool dragon. Ranryu, dragon with an effect. You can only control one Ranryu. If you control a Spellcaster monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can target one monster with 1500 or 200 defense in your graveyard, except Ranryu. Special summon it. 1500 attack and 200 defense. So, this operates quite similar to Inari Fire. Difference being, when the card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can just summon it right away. So, if you want a more immediate resurrection, Ranryu is the card you're looking for. And we have our 4 familiars. We have Ranryu for wind, Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness for earth, Inari Fire for fire, Gigabyte for water. And now, as we go deeper into the structure deck, we've already covered the 4 Spirit Charmers and their support. So now you're going to get a lot more into regular cards for a while. So, ordinary cards as support. We'll start off with a card called Fairy Tale Sleeper, a level 4 light type. Oh, that's so cute. I know it's very feminine and girly, but you can't help but admit that's cute. Spellcaster Flip effect. You can special summon 1 monster from your hand. When your opponent activates a normal spell or trap card, quick effect, you contribute 1 other monster. The activated effect becomes change 1 face-up monster your opponent controls to face-down defense position. You can only use this effect of Fairy Tale Sleeper once per turn. An attack of 1850 and a defense of 1000. This card actually synergizes very well with the Spirit Charmers. 1, because it's really cute. 2, because its effect focuses on changing your opponent's effect to turning your cards face down. But the Spirit Charmers specialize in being flip face up and controlling an opponent's monster. So if they're already face up, you get a chance to flip them down and do it again. Or succeed if you failed the first time. So that is one of your support cards, Fairy Tale Sleeper. And our next card is another Fairy Tale card. Fairy Tale Rella, another cutie pie, a level 4 light type spellcaster with an effect. Oh, she's so cute. Neither player can target monsters on the field with spell cards or effects, except this one. Once per turn you can discard 1 spell, equip 1 equip spell from your hand, deck, or graveyard to this card, but return that equip spell to the hand during the edit phase. An attack of 1850 and a defense of 1000. So you get to protect monsters in your field from spell cards or effects, and also you can discard a spell and equip an equip spell from your hand, deck, or graveyard to this card, but you have to return it to the hand during the end phase. Still, this is a very useful overall card to have in a deck like the Spirit Charmers, and that is Fairy Tale Keller. And our next card is another Fairy Tale card, but a different one. We have the level 4 light type Fairy Tale Luna. Another very cute and adorable card. Fairy Tale Luna, spellcaster with an effect. When this card is normal summon, you can add 1 spellcaster monster with 1850 attack from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Your opponent can send 1 card with that monster's name from their deck or extra deck to the graveyard to negate this effect. Otherwise, return both this card and that monster to the hand. An attack of 1850 and a defense of 1000. So this card synergizes well enough with its own archetype, Fairy Tale monsters, and can be used quite well with our Spirit Charmers, making it a suitable choice to be used in this structure deck. It's not mind-blowing or anything, but it helps out. So, our next card's going to be something different altogether. A card called Witchcrafter Golem Aruru, a light type level 2, 4, 6, 8 monster. monster. Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. Very cute. Is she like a mannequin? You see her facial features there, but you see her joints. She's supposed to be a mannequin? If she is, it looks really cool. Spellcaster with an effect. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a spellcaster monster or monsters you control, or targets it for an attack, quick effect, you can target one card your opponent controls or one witchcrafter spell in your graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, return that targeted card to the hand. Excuse me. You can only use this effect of Witchcrafter Golem Aruru once per turn. Once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, return this card to the hand. An attack of 2800 and a defense of 0. So, you can special summon this from your hand. This is a variety of effects. This could be useful. The card known as Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. Witchcrafters are their own small little archetype, which we very well could see more of in the future. You never know. It's a powerful looking card with an interesting artwork. I'd be happy to dive more into it if I encounter it again. And so, we move on to our next card, which actually, for some reason, just holds a special place in my heart. It is a card known as Dark Doriado. A card like this is right up my alley. Why? Well, I like seeing dark versions of existing monsters. You see, Doriado is not an archetype, but it's a monster that shows up repeatedly. You have Doriado, which is a plain vanilla monster. You have the Elemental Mistress Doriado, which is one of my favorite cards. Even though it's not particularly powerful, I just love the artwork on it. This is the dark version of Doriado, called, you guessed it, Dark Doriado, a level 4 dark type pendulum monster with an effect. Its pendulum effect, pendulum marker 5 on each side. If it uses a pendulum monster, all earth, water, fire, and wind monsters you control gain 200 attack and defense for every different attribute among the monsters you control. So this is pretty useful in a Spirit Charmer deck, as you're using the 4 elementals together. So, if you had earth, water, fire, and wind, you can gain 200 attack and defense for every different one. So you could possibly add 800 points if you had all 4 elements on the field. And look at how beautiful that card is. Dark outfit, beautiful blonde hair, cool artwork. That is Dark Doriado. I love these dark reprisals of existing cards. Now if you use it, it's a spellcaster with an effect. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can choose 4 monsters from your deck. 1 earth, 1 water, 1 fire, and 1 wind. Then place them on top of your deck in any order. An attack of 1800 and a defense of 1400. So this is all about getting the element that you want out in the field when you want it. If you want to turn around and say, right, what cards do I need in a particular order? I need fire, then water, then earth. But then another game you might be like, I need wind, and then fire. This lets you rearrange cards in the top of your deck in any order you like. Very useful for a card which specializes. A card used in a deck that specializes in elementals. That is Dark Doriado. Really love this card. So, our next card's going to be, how can I describe this card? A classic. It is the legendary Witch of the Black Forest, level 4 dark type monster. Very cool artwork, reminiscent of the days of old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Spellcaster with an effect. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, add one monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand, but you cannot activate cards or the effects of cards with that name for the rest of this turn. You can only use this effect of Witch of the Black Forest once per turn. An attack of 1100 and a defense of 1200. This is a legendary card, and it may not seem like it to newcomers to the game. Newcomers to Yu-Gi-Oh! Might think this doesn't seem like a particularly powerful card. Why would people rave on about it? Well, in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! There wasn't much variety in the card selection. So a card like Witch of the Black Forest was your ultimate searcher. If it's removed from the field, anything with less than 1500 or less defense can be added from your deck to your hand. This was really useful in a lot of strategies, particularly Exodia, the Forbidden One, which required you to assemble 5 pieces of Exodia to defeat the opponent instantly. So, Witch of the Black Forest was essentially 1 piece of Exodia in your hand, and you were 4 parts away from winning the duel. So a card as weak as this actually had a really good purpose for searching for other cards. And it's a useful card to have in general, even nowadays. It may not be as powerful as it once was, but this witch definitely rose to prominence in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh! Witch of the Black Forest. Wonderful. And our next card's going to be a level 1 light type monster called Effect Veiler. It's a spellcaster tuner with an effect. During your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. Then target one effect monster your opponent controls. Negate the effects of that face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of this turn. An attack of 0 and defense of 0. This card is very straightforward. Quick effect, you can send this from your hand to the graveyard and basically wipe out an effect monster's effects till the end of the turn. It's not going to do anything else besides that. It can be used as synchro material or used to basically eliminate a potential threat an effect monster has to yourself. Powerful if you know how to use it, and that is Effect Veiler. So, our next card is going to be, ooh, this is cool. We have the level 4 light type, Denko Sekka. This really cool looking female samurai. Denko Sekka. I love this artwork. The snow in the background, this badass looking warrior lady. Yeah, this is cool. Denko Sekka, level 4 light type monster. Thunder with an effect. It cannot be special summoned. While you control no set spells or traps, neither player can set spells or traps nor activate spell or trap cards that are set on the field. An attack of 1700 and a defense of 1000. So this card is a literal double-edged sword. While it's on the field and you have no set spells or traps, neither player can set spells or traps or activate them. So while you have none, the opponent essentially has none, is how Denko Sekka works out. But they're tying in a lot of cool yet cute feminine cards into this deck. But then you get Denko Sekka, who's like a glorious badass. I like that. You've got cards like Witch of the Black Forest, even though they got a female card in there. It's like a dark monster. It's really cool. I like that. You have a combination of girly and badass. I like it. Denko Sekka. Our next card's going to be a spell card called Awakening of the Possessed. Wow, this artwork is something else. I'm going to zoom in on this one. Awakening of the Possessed. We have, wow, earth, water, fire, wind. All united and together. So, it's a spell card with an effect. Go figure. Monsters you control gain 300 attack for each different attribute you control. Charmer and familiar possessed monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. Ooh, that's amazing. If a spellcaster monster or monsters with 1850 original attack is normal or special summoned to your field, draw one card. You can only use this effect of Awakening of the Possessed once per turn. This card is amazing. This is the kind of support that really reinvigorates a card altogether. Why? It strengthens the card. It gives you the power to draw more cards, which is just useful across the board. Think about it. You're strengthening your monsters. You're encouraging the player to play the way the cards were meant to be played. And you're rewarding them with a card for their troubles. And it's a continuous spell card that just keeps going and going. And then we get spoiled with some really nice artwork. I can't complain about that. And that is the cool-ass spell card called Awakening of the Possessed. Very nice. Alright. Our next card's going to be another spell card called Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Not a Spirit Charmer card specifically, but useful nonetheless. Secret Village of the Spellcasters. If only you control a spellcaster monster, your opponent cannot activate spell cards. If you control no spellcaster monsters, you cannot activate spell cards. So it's a trade-off. If you control a spellcaster and your opponent doesn't, they can't activate spells. But if you don't control a spellcaster, you can activate spell cards. So it's a double-edged sword. It requires spellcasters, and it's a case of one player loses out on their own spells. So it's down to yourself. But it's a cool little support card. It's not specifically for this archetype, but it can be useful in the right situation. Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Our next card is Spellbook of Knowledge. Oop, apologies. I just hit the camera there. Sorry about that. I'm just keeping that blooper in. Screw it, why not? Spellbook of Knowledge, spell card. Send to the graveyard either one spellcaster monster you control or one other spellbook card from your hand or face-up field, except Spellbook of Knowledge. And if you do, draw 2 cards. You can only activate one Spellbook of Knowledge per turn. Spellbook is its own archetype in itself, and this is a useful card to have. Mind you, some of the other Spellbook cards are really, really good, but they're exclusive to the Spellbook archetype. This is more of a general one, because you can still use this with other spellcasters, which is pretty useful. But maybe one day we'll get a structure deck, which involves the Spellbooks. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, it's cool to have Spellbook of Knowledge. And our next card is an incredibly versatile and useful card for many different dueling decks. We have Terraforming, spell card. Very simple effect, used by a lot of people. Add one field spell card from your deck to your hand. Now, And when I told you the Raigeki was very useful because it's so simple, terraforming is exactly the same. You play this, you want a field spell card from your deck, add it to your hand. That's it. That's as simple as it needs to be. And cards as simple and as useful as that always stay relevant. Whether they get used a lot or not as much as they should be, they still see use. So you're always going to like to have cards like terraforming around. And that is terraforming. Very useful utility card. Our next card is another spell known as Book of Eclipse. Spell card. Change all face-up monsters on the field to face-down defense position. During the end phase of this turn, change as many face-down defense position monsters your opponent controls as possible to face-up defense position. Then your opponent draws cards equal to the number of monsters changed face-up by this effect. So Book of Eclipse is a kind of double-edged sword as well. I'm noticing this as a theme for the spells in this deck, is that you get to do something really useful, but there is a price to pay. You get to turn the opponent's monsters into defense position, then flip them into face-up defense position. But they get to draw cards up to how many cards get flipped up by this. So, if you're only doing it to one monster, it's fine. The opponent's going to draw a card, which is still pretty bad because, to me, having one card extra, even though it's just one card, it can be life or death in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So if you manage to do this to like 4 monsters, the opponent will be thanking you for letting you get them 4 cards into their hand. But there are some pretty advanced plays using cards like Book of Eclipse, which can really mess with an opponent. So I'm not going to trash talk it. Every card has its own use in Yu-Gi-Oh! Whether for competitiveness or for fun. And that is Book of Eclipse. Now our next card is, to be honest, a card that I like to splash into decks when I'm playing the game, sometimes. It's a card that I kind of look at and go, like, say I've got 35 cards out of a 40 card deck and I don't know what to put in there. I don't know what to fill out the deck with. Sometimes I'll go for something that's simple but useful across the board, like this next card. The spell card known as Twin Twisters. Its effect is very simple. Discard 1 card, then target up to 2 spells or traps on the field. Destroy them. Now in the artwork you get a cool little effect here. You can see the magical hats used by the Dark Magician. You can see scapegoats used by Joey Wheeler. The Ancient Telescope, which is an old school spell card. And that little Ankh, Egyptian Ankh in the background, that is, well, that's the symbol for Monster Reborn, I believe. So, Twin Twisters. Why do I like to splash this into a lot of dueling decks? Well, it's simple. You get to discard 1 card, which, depending on your deck, isn't actually a price. It can be an advantage in some cases. You discard a card. Then, you target up to 2 set spells or traps on the field. They don't have to be your opponent's. They can be your own as well. It's useful because if you want to destroy your own cards to activate their effects, or you want to just get rid of 2 of your opponent's face downs, Twin Twisters is a very useful way to do it. I personally like to throw this into a Blackluster Soldier deck, because that archetype's really good, but one thing it lacks is spell and trap destruction. Something like this can really come in useful if you need something simple to get that job done. That is Twin Twisters. We now have, we've got a few cards left. We have our next card, which is called, this is pretty cool. The spell card named Dark Ruler No More. A very funny and cool artwork, which actually has a backstory, believe it or not. To newcomers, you may not know this, but Yu-Gi-Oh cards have lore behind them. Not all of them, but some of them have stories that can be told. So, one of the stories in these artworks is the card known as the Dark King of the Abyss. A vanilla monster back from the original days of Yu-Gi-Oh! He gets sacrificed by this guy, Dark Ruler Hades. Basically, this guy is made like a joke, a laughing stock, and a lot of cards. And this is him getting his revenge on his evil boss, Dark Ruler Hades. Spell card. Effect. Negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. Also for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, your opponent takes no damage. Neither player can activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. So, it's a double-edged sword. Negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls. That's tremendous. But until the end of the turn, your opponent takes no damage. So, you can negate your opponent's effects, but you can't damage them. So that's the trade-off. And that is Dark Ruler No More. And it's kind of satisfying to see the Dark King of the Abyss get his revenge on his boss. I think a lot of us would love to lay a whipping on our boss. Not everyone, but I know a lot of people that would. So seeing something like this is kind of nice. Our next card. Ooh, I keep bumping that camera. I apologize, everyone. Sorry for my very professional setup here. So, our next card is a trap card called Unpossessed. This time we're showing the familiars of the Spirit Charmers united. So we have Inari Fire, Archfiend Hiita, Ranryu, and Gigabyte. Is that how you say him? Yeah, Gigabyte. I almost called him Gigabyte, as in the unit of memory. Megabyte. Okay, that was stupid. Anyways, it's a trap card. A continuous trap card. Nice. Unpossessed. It's a mouthful. Charmer monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. If a familiar possessed monster you control attacks an opponent's monster, it gains 800 attack during damage calculation only. If a monster or monsters you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, while this card is already face up in your spell and trap zone, you can special summon one Spellcaster monster with 1500 defense from your deck, whose attribute is different from at least one of those destroyed monsters' original attributes on the field. In attack position or face down defense position, you can only use this effect of Unpossessed once per turn. Pretty much the bread and butter of what this card's trying to say is it lets you power up your Charmer monsters, and it really makes it easy for you to bring back Spellcaster monsters from your deck. So, it lets you bring cards from your deck and power Charmers up at the same time. That's pretty much what it's trying to say. Unpossessed. All the familiars combined. Fire, water, earth, wind. Gotta love the color scheme to differentiate them as well. I think I'll actually put that down there. Yeah. Okay. And so the next card we have, well, I should say the next 4 cards we have are cards called Spiritual Earth Art, Spiritual Water Art, Spiritual Fire Art, and Spiritual Wind Art. These are trap cards with artwork from all 3 Well, not free, but 4 spirit charmers. They all have similar effects to each other. So, let's start off with Aussa. Trap card. Spiritual F art. Kurogane. Kurogane, whichever one's the correct pronunciation. Kurogane. Aussa, and a dark magical circle there. Tribute 1 Earth monster and target 1 level 4 or lower Earth monster in your graveyard. Special summon that Earth monster. So you tribute an Earth monster to target 1 in your graveyard and summon it. And that is Spiritual Earth art, Kurogane. Our next card is Spiritual Wind art, Miyabi. This has Wynn on the cover in a dark magical circle. Tribute 1 wind monster, then target 1 card your opponent controls. Place that opponent's card on the bottom of the deck. Very useful. Getting a card out of the way by moving it around the deck can sometimes be more powerful than destroying it at times. And that is Spiritual Wind art, Miyabi. Our next card is Spiritual Water art, Aoi, which has Eria, the water charmer, in a dark magical circle. Tribute 1 water monster. Look at your opponent's hand, then send 1 card from their hand to the graveyard. The importance of being able to look at your opponent's hand is pretty good enough in its own, but getting to pick something and go, right, get rid of that, that's really good. And that's Spiritual Water art, Aoi. Well, you'll be feeling Aoi if you have to discard one of your own cards, and you don't want to. And our 4th and final spiritual art is Spiritual Fire art, Kurenai. We have Hiita. Really cool outfit she has. Tribute 1 fire monster. Inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. So, this card is as powerful as you allow it to be. If you tribute a card whose original attack is 2500, it's going to inflict 2500 damage. But if you sacrifice something with 500 attack, it's only going to deal 500 damage. It's up to which fire monster you contribute. For Spiritual Fire art, Kurenai. So, that was spiritual arts for all 4 spirit charmers. It's nice of them to include those. Next cards, let's see what we got. We have 7 in total. I'm going to leave the last 4 for a reason. Let's get into the last 3 single cards. The first being a trap card called Metaverse. Really cool futuristic city here. Metaverse. Take 1 field spell from your deck and either activate it or add it to your hand. So, this is like terraforming from Eria, with a catch. This gives you a bit more freedom because you get to take a field spell and add it to your hand, but you get the option to play it right away. But this is a trap card, and you can't activate trap cards during your turn. You have to wait for the trap card to trigger, so that's kind of the trade-off. But it's a way of getting a field spell onto your cards. Well, into your hand, I mean. So, it's a useful card to have, don't get me wrong. Our next card is a trap card called Dimensional Barrier. That's a really cool artwork. Dimensional Barrier. Those 2 cards. I think that card on the left is Fried, the Matchless General. I think that's his name. And what's this guy's name again? I'm forgetting. The Marauding Captain, I believe he's called. He shows up in a lot of artworks. Dimensional Barrier is a trap card. Declare one monster card type. Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Ixies, or Pendulum. For the rest of this turn, neither player can special summon monsters of the declared type. Also, negate the effects of all monsters of that type while they are on the field. You can only activate one dimensional barrier per turn. So this is kind of a declaration. You name a monster card type, and then neither you or your opponent can use it. You can't summon them, and you can't use their effects while they're in the field. So, it's a good way of locking down your opponent from their options if they are single-minded. If they only focus on one specific monster type, you might be able to completely brick wall them and stop them from doing anything to you. If they're really focused on hitting you with ritual monsters, you can use something like this to lock the field down. But that's all up to you. And that is Dimensional Barrier. And our last single card that isn't connected to these last four is a trap card called Solemn Warning. You've got this wise and really cool looking sage talking to these beautiful angels. When a monster or monsters would be summoned, or when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons a monster or monsters, pay 2,000 life points, negate the summon, and if you do, destroy it. This is a counter trap. Now, this card is quite funny when you look at how the Yu-Gi-Oh game has progressed. This card is pretty much a nerfed version of a card called Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment is a card that was banned for years and years and years because it was a trap card that you could activate when pretty much anything happened. If it was a spell or a trap or a monster being summoned, you had to pay half your life points and you just got to say, no, that ain't happening. So that card was incredibly useful. So this card's kind of a nerfed version of that. You have to pay 2,000 life points. So this is more specific. This is just for messing around with special summons. Whereas the buffed version and original version of this card, Solemn Judgment, was good at just shutting down everything, which was just too good. But it's a counter trap, so they're designed to be used as counterattacks. But Solemn Judgment was able to counter pretty much anything in the game, so you wanted to load your deck with a card like that. But that's Solemn Warning and a funny little ramble about its distant brother. And so, we come to our final four cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure deck, Spirit Charmers. And I thought I'd end the video with the most appropriate cards to end it with. Not only do we get the 4 Spirit Charmers, we get 4 alternate versions. 4 alternate versions of the Spirit Charmers from way back in the day. So let's enjoy them, shall we? The first of these cards is a card called Familiar Possessed Aussa. It's a level 4 Earth-type monster. You see Aussa, yet again, with her familiar, Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness. Spellcaster with an effect. You can special summon this card from your hand or deck by sending 1 face-up Aussa, the Earth Charmer, and 1 face-up Earth monster you control to the graveyard. If this card is special summoned by its own effect, attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. So, you can summon this if you get Aussa out in the field and it hijacks an Earth monster. you can summon this card from the deck or your hand, and when it's summoned by its own effect, you can inflict piercing battle damage, which means when you attack a defense position monster, the difference between the attack and defense is subtracted, which means you can inflict damage even when the opponent is defending. So, Familiar Possessed Aussa. If you get Aussa to pull off her effect, you can summon Familiar Possessed, and we have a variety of cards to power her up. So, that's Familiar Possessed Aussa. We now have Familiar Possessed Eria, level 4 water type monster. I adore these artworks they use for the Familiar Possessed, they're so cool. You get to see a familiar in the background, a beautiful use of colouring, and the Spirit Charmers looking serious. Familiar Possessed Eria is almost identical to the previous card we've shown. You can special summon this card from your hand or deck by sending one face-up Eria the Water Charmer and one face-up water monster you control to the graveyard. If this special summon by its own effect attacks... If this card special summoned by its own effect attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage, 1850 attack and 1500 defense. So, this effect is pretty much the same as Familiar Possessed Aussa. Only difference, it targets. This card targets water types. And so, it's very similar for the final two cards, which are Familiar Possessed Hiita, level 4 fire type monster. Well, fire attribute. Excuse me, I keep making that mistake. We have a cool burning background, a furious and intense looking Hiita, Spellcaster with an effect. You can special summon this card from your hand or deck by sending one face-up Hiita the Fire Charmer and one face-up fire monster you control to the graveyard. If this card special summoned by its own effect attacks a defense position monster, it inflicts piercing battle damage. It's the same as the other two cards, but it's with the fire element. 1850 attack and 1500 defense. And our final card for Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure Deck, Spirit Charmers, is Familiar Possessed Wynn, the level 4 Wynn type monster. You get a beautiful green hue with Ranryu, Wynn, and it's a spellcaster with an effect. You can special summon this card from your hand or deck by sending one face-up Wynn the Wind Charmer and one face-up Wind monster you control to the graveyard. If this special summon by its own effect card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage, 1850 attack and 1500 defense. So, 1850 might not seem like a great amount of attack points, and granted back in the day, this was kind of the problem with these Spirit Charmers. They're very cute, they've got really cool designs, but 1850 with piercing damage, it was missing the punch, if you will. Piercing battle damage is really good, but you need a monster that can really break through and damage an opponent. You've got cards that are really good at that, so 1850 isn't really exceptional. But now we have a bunch of spell and traps that can really support these Spirit Charmers. The Spirit Charmers and the Familiar Possessed, so that they get more attack points. So cards like this can attack stronger. The originals can use their effects better, and a bunch of new cards to get up to all kinds of exciting new plays. And so, we're drawing to the end of Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure Deck Spirit Charmers. I've deeply enjoyed filming this structure deck for every one of you people. Thank you so much to all of you who made it to the end. I'm really grateful to you for it. Before we say goodbye, I'll just count down the cards one last time before we say goodbye. I'd just like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your company and for generously donating your time to keep us company. I enjoy making these videos, and I hope you, in any way, shape or form, in your own personal life, feel better after watching this. Take it easy, my friends. So, we obtained a Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure deck, Spirit Charmers, not Street Charmers. Street Charmers, that sounds a bit shady. Anyways, Spell card, Raigeki, Possessed Partnerships, Familiar Possessed Wynn, Book of Eclipse, Gigabyte, Eria the Water Charmer, Denko Seka, Wynn the Wind Charmer, Ranryu, Fairy Tale, Rella, Fairy Tale, Sleeper, Dark Doriado, Witchcrafter Golem Aruru, Fairy Tale, Luna, Secret Village of the Spellcasters, Spiritual Wind Art, Miyabi, Spiritual Water Art, Aoi, Aoi Wowie, Familiar Possessed Area, Witch of the Black Forest, Unpossessed, Solemn Warning, Metaverse, Familiar Possessed, Aussa. Our token card, which we got as a bonus, Dimensional Barrier, Familiar Possessed, Hiita, Spiritual Fire Art, Kurenai, Awakening of the Possessed, Spirit Charmers, the namesake of this entire deck, Dark Ruler No More, the useful Twin Twisters, same for Terraforming, Inari Fire, Hiita the Fire Charmer, Awakening of the Possessed, Greater Inari Fire, Spellbook of Knowledge, Spiritual Elf Art, Kuragane, Effect Veiler, Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness, Aussa, the Earth Charmer, Awakening of the Possessed, Nefarious Archfiend, Grand Spiritual Art, Ichirin, and Familiar Possessed, Aussa, an alternate artwork. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to reorganize this a little bit in a way that's satisfying to myself and no one else. So, we got Familiar Possessed, Aussa, with the alternate artwork at the top. That's nice to have. Right, what can we do here? Spirit Charmers in the center. We have the two Awakening of the Possessed cards, Fire and Earth. Now, just because it really satisfies me, rather than put them away in no particular order, I would like to put, let's see, Familiar Possessed, Aussa, the Elf Charmer, Familiar Possessed, Aussa. Excuse me for a moment, I'm just organizing things here. Right. This should be satisfying. We have Hiita, the Fire Charmer, and Familiar Possessed Hiita together. Fire. We have Wynn, the Wind Charmer, and Familiar Possessed Wynn together. We have Eria, the Water Charmer, and Familiar Possessed Eria together. And finally, the one we managed to get the alternate artwork of, we got Aussa, the Elf Charmer, and Familiar Possessed Aussa together. And so, we have finally come to the end of this fun little video of Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure Deck Spirit Charmers. I've really enjoyed making this video for you all, my friends. Thank you so much for watching to this point. I plan on doing a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh! Content in the future, so don't you worry. There'll be more structure decks coming in the future. There's two in particular I have my eye on. Let's just say there's dragons involved, which would be pretty cool when I get round to it. I'll still be opening booster decks. I'll be opening booster packs as normal, as well as structure decks. I'm just trying to spice things up a little. So, this has been great fun. I also have a special surprise in mind for the future for all you Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans on my channel, so stay tuned. But to everyone in general, to the everyday viewer, anyone who stops by watching this, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed your company tonight. Whatever you're going through in life right now, good, bad, I believe in you. You can do it. And take care of yourself, my friend. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful day, no matter who you are or where you are. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or even a little subscribe, but I'm not going to pressure you. If you like my stuff, then great, show some support, but if not, it's okay. Feel free to just scroll on by. But thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful for it. So you take care of yourself. Do it for me, alright? You owe yourself that much. Thank you so much, my friends. This has been Alakazam ASMR with Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure Deck Spirit Charmers ASMR. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you soon, my friends. Adios. See you next time, my friends.